So there is a common question that I have been getting asked a lot recently, and it surrounds the Bulls' current head coach, Billy Donovan, and a lot of you guys want to know, how much are the Bulls going to continue to hang on to Billy Donovan, especially if the Bulls don't see any improvement next season? I've seen some folks say he won't even make it beyond this season with how disappointing the Bulls have been, and I want to share my perspective because I think a lot of this is unfounded, and some people are reacting just too negatively to the hire of Donovan, and this is coming from a guy who was really never a big fan of the Billy Donovan hiring when it was first announced. And so I'll share my short and long-term outlook for Billy as it pertains to his future with the Chicago Bulls. So what's going on, everyone? You were listening to Bulls Central here. Hope you're all doing well. Guys, in case you were interested in the results of yesterday's poll in which I had asked whether you thought the Bulls would make the playoffs or not, this was after yesterday's upload in which I talked about how realistic it would be for the Bulls to make the playoffs given the challenging remaining schedule. And as you can see, the results were pretty even for the most part in terms of those who thought the Bulls would make it versus those who didn't. A few of you mentioned in the comments that you obviously hope the Bulls make the playoffs, but it's unlikely at this point. I'll leave a link to yesterday's video in the description in case you missed it. I do still believe the Bulls will make the play-in tournament despite the hard schedule. However, I don't see them advancing into the playoffs from the play-in tournament, given they'll have to win both the play-in games in order to get there. But anyway, I thought I would share the results of the poll with you guys. Now back to the topic at hand. As for Billy Donovan, so I remember when the announcement was made that the new front office had hired Billy Donovan. I remember being pretty annoyed that they chose to go with him, because I honestly thought that they were going to go with someone like Kenny Atkinson, Ime Udoka, or Wes Unseld Jr., all of the guys that were rumored to likely be getting the job, and nothing had ever really been speculated that the Bulls were going to be trying to go after Billy Donovan. So when I saw this, I was kind of like, okay, I mean, he's not bad. It's certainly an upgrade from Jim Boylen, but he didn't strike me as the type of coach that was perfect for this roster given his time coaching in OKC. Which there was a period of time in that season with Paul George and Russell Westbrook where I actually thought that the Thunder were for sure going to fire him based on, you know, that he was continuously given talent on his rosters and he couldn't get them very far. If you remember, his first season coaching was with Kevin Durant in that final year, his final year with the Thunder, in which they blew a 3-1 lead to the Warriors in the Western Conference Finals, and that was the furthest that Billy Donovan was ever able to advance with the Oklahoma City Thunder. And for the rest of his tenure, you know, I mean, OKC was pretty mediocre, right? Westbrook was obviously doing his thing and averaging that triple-double, winning an MVP, and really his last season with the Thunder was the most impressive, meaning Billy Donovan's most impressive, when everyone thought that the Thunder would be the worst team in the league after they traded away Russell Westbrook for CP3, a guy who most felt was on the decline and essentially a bunch of draft capital. But the Thunder really surprised everyone by making it to the playoffs, and they even took the Rockets to 7 games in the first round before losing. So when the Bulls signed him, I guess I just thought it was a bit underwhelming, but then as time grew on, I started to like the idea of the hiring even more, because Billy Donovan was the most successful when he had a young team with limited talent and found a way to get the group to win and outperform expectations. Obviously, a huge piece of that was Chris Paul, who is one of the best point guards in NBA history, you know, to help you manage the offense and run a system that Donovan prefers to run rather than heavy isolation type players, which he had under Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook. So knowing this and knowing that the Bulls were a young team in desperate need of a coach that could focus on player development, which Donovan, given his incredible success at the college level, I thought, okay, maybe this is actually a great fitting coach for the Bulls for now. Not necessarily for the long term if the Bulls start contending, but as far as developing these young guys and getting them out of their bad habits that they learned under Jim Boylen, then yeah, I can get behind this hire. Now, I actually made a video about Billy Donovan closer to the beginning of the season in which I talked about his ability to be a great development coach, but that he likely, you know, would be more of a stepping stone coach for the Bulls long term in getting these guys to develop and buy into the concept of team basketball, almost like a Mark Jackson type situation, and how he really was sort of that step in bringing the Warriors from one of the bottom feeders in the league to where they eventually got to and becoming a dynasty. Not saying that Billy Donovan is like Mark Jackson, because I actually think Donovan is a significantly better coach than Mark Jackson, but more so using that as an analogy as Billy likely not being being the Bulls coach for the future necessarily when it comes to making a title run, but will help them in getting the guys back onto the path of contention. So those are my initial thoughts on Billy Donovan. Now fast forward to where we are now, and obviously you have a lot of frustrated Bulls fans who are saying he wasn't the right hire at all, how we should have hired a guy like Nate McMillan or Kenny Atkinson or even other coaches as well, to then extremists of him needing to be fired ASAP. Now, like you guys, I'm definitely just as frustrated with the Bulls, and a lot of the accountability should be sitting with Billy Donovan. His rotations during games are very questionable, and what I don't get is that, he's one of the biggest believers of only having an 8 or 9 man rotation, but then you see him putting in multiple guys well beyond that throughout the game. He'll put in guys together on the court that don't really complement each other's skill sets very well. I mean, part of the reason is the Bulls don't have the best defensive players, but there have been multiple times where his lineups aren't rounded out enough between offensive and defensive players on the court. You'll see him not make the right adjustments based on how the opponent's defense have responded to our offense. And I think what bothers me most of all is that there's a clear lack of motivation, energy, and heart from a lot of the players on certain nights when they're playing in games. And some of that sits with the players, but they have to find it within themselves to come out hustling every night. But that also is on Donovan as a coach to be motivating your guys and getting on their case, or even benching them if they don't come out ready to play. This is a professional sports league. Come ready to play 100% or get out. All of this being said though, and really to answer the question that I've been getting, what is Billy Donovan's future with the Bulls and how long will they likely hold on to him? Well, first of all, they're not going to fire him with less than a month to go into the season. So, for those of you that are saying that he should be fired now, that's just not happening. And second, he's not going to get fired in the offseason after just 1 year under his belt coaching a team that was kind of a mess of a roster in terms of its construction, which was not Billy Donovan's fault or even really Arturas's fault. They inherited this roster from an old front office, and they made adjustments that they could try to make it to be a little more cohesive. But the fact of the matter is, you're not going to find a guy or fire a guy after 1 season with the roster that he had. Now, if the Bulls maybe finished with the worst record in the league this year and were getting blown out every night, I mean, maybe, but even then, it's very rare for teams to fire coaches after 1 season on the job, no matter how bad the team performs. Now, if next season, say the Bulls don't really progress at all any further, or say they even get worse than what we're seeing right now, and if Arturas improves the roster a bit further with potential moves or trades in the offseason, then yeah, I think there would be a case that Billy Donovan likely is not the man for the job, because they have to start worrying about disgruntled players not wanting to play for him. You have Zach Lavine, who will be playing in a contract year, and the last thing you want to do is have another bad season and risk losing him. And of course, you're not going to attract other free agents in the summer of 2022 if you're choosing to keep the same coach that had yet another poor season. Now, my hope is that the Bulls do get better next season. Again, this season was an evaluation year. We were in a pandemic, so not a proper off season. The Bulls brought in new players midway through the year, so it was a strange season nonetheless. But next season, with the guys having a full off season, training camp, summer league for the rookies, hopefully some more adjustments are made to the roster to improve it further. Yeah, the Bulls should be a considerably better team from what we're seeing right now. So let's say the Bulls do better and outperform expectations. Then yeah, obviously they're going to keep Billy Donovan around. They will keep him around as long as the Bulls are continuing to make progress. But the minute they make progress and say they start making the playoffs and potentially become a fringe contending team, but they just can't quite get over the hump to contention, then that's where Billy will probably be let go. Because like I said, I don't think Billy Donovan is a championship type winning coach in the NBA. He can develop guys and get you there on the right path for it, but he'll hit his ceiling as a coach once players have developed and turned into stars. And at that point, the front office will go with someone who is a proven winning coach that is better able to handle star egos and personalities, because that's the toughest transition for a historically successful coach, is going from coaching 18 to 22-year-old college kids to grown men that are getting paid millions of dollars to play the game of basketball. The way you motivate professional players and get them to work hard and compete at the highest level possible is very, very different from how you coach college kids who are not getting paid. And I feel like we saw that struggle with Billy Donovan in OKC in his early years with the team when coaching Kevin Durant and Westbrook and then Paul George, to then his last season coaching a bunch of young players and developing those players, and then obviously Chris Paul as well. That's just my opinion though. I want to know what you guys think. Realistically, how long do you think, or how many seasons will Billy Donovan coach for the Chicago Bulls? Because obviously every coach's time has to come to an end, even for the best of them. I'll leave a community poll for this question as well, so be on the lookout for that. Let me know in the comments your guys' thoughts on Billy Donovan, as I would love to hear your take on his coaching abilities in the NBA. The Bulls will be taking on the Heat tonight. I'll have a live group chat for that, so you guys can all follow along. Be sure to subscribe if you're a Bulls fan, as I post daily Bulls content. Thanks again for tuning in, guys, and I will catch you in the next one.